All right, Cancer, so you're needing to pay attention to the warning signs here that you're heading in a direction that is not true to yourself, or you're not being who you naturally are. So natural, authentic, real, and organic. And then the hawk prince, spirit communication and paying attention. And this did show up as a challenge. But with natural, we're talking about, too much self-reliance on the feedback of others, the feedback of society. It talks about self-worth being centered in status, and therefore is constantly shifting and uncentered. But it's saying that there's too much of an over-reliance on the ways of identifying who you are by the material. But you're making choices that could be for material gain, but that's not normally who you are. But you are ignoring the warning signs here that you're headed in the wrong direction, and it's just saying that you need to pay attention to what you are doing that does not feel natural to you. All right, Cancer. Here's your overall, the Two of Cups. So for some of you focused on a relationship here, but something doesn't seem quite right. Yeah, it's funny because the feeling that I'm getting is like the Five of Wands mixed with the Two of Cups, where you and your partner are not on the same page or not seeing things the same way. But we'll see how this is playing out here. And then in the past, the Fool. Now, with the Two of Cups being the overall, it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic here, but with the Fool, this is definitely taking a chance or a risk with a relationship. But, I'm still kind of like looking at the Oracle cards and wondering, where is it that you are feeling like you're not being true to yourself, But the Fool would suggest here, like leaping into something here, having faith in the process. A new beginning, definitely. In the present, the Knight of Cups. And, none of it is bad, With the Knight of Cups being in the present moment, I see that as you basically doing what you feel is right here, especially if there is that kind of offer of love coming through with the Knight of Cups, but we're talking about doing what you feel like in the moment here, but it is definitely for crying out loud, surrounding a relationship. I know how to talk. I promise I do. But we'll see here how it's connected to your environment. I love the Knight of Cups, but Knights don't think, they act. Future conditions, the Knight of Wands, I don't think that it matters. I think that some of you realize that you may be taking a risk when it comes to accepting an offer here. I think that, for you, it's not necessarily a bad thing. With the Fool here, it's a new beginning, a new path, a new start. And you're doing what you feel like is right for you. And with the Knight of Wands being future conditions here, absolutely, it's about following your passion, right? But being swept up in passion and emotions here. Okay, so your best path to follow, and it's not a bad thing. With justice being there, first of all, you want to make sure that the choices that you're making in your relationships are going to be fair for you. I mean, obviously here with justice, making sure that things are fair and that they're right, and that the both of you are feeling the same way, with the Two of Cups being the overall. Sorry guys, I'm like losing my voice. But I also look at that and I feel like something needs to be corrected though. Like something needs to be corrected here. But we are talking about a situation that is going to be more fair, more balanced for you. And none of it's bad. Oh yeah. In your environment, the Ten of Cups. What I worry about here is because I'm looking back at the Oracle cards, and if you're needing to pay attention about going in the wrong direction, it may be that You need to come from a place where you feel like it's natural for you, that the connection is natural, that it's not forced, which is possible here. But with the Ten of Cups in your environment, that's perfect. Overall happiness, happy life. So for some of you, yeah, this could be about, possibly getting back together with someone where there may have been like a separation. For some of you, it could be a legal separation, which is possible here, but things still being fair and balanced and corrected. And then with the Knight of Cups, this is you doing like what you feel is going to bring you that overall happiness, even if that means accepting an offer from another person here to have that kind of connection. All of it looks really good, Cancer. The hell. Okay. And look at all of the emotions going on. The Eight of Cups, your hopes and fears. And that may be where the risk is coming through with the Fool, because I really think that that's what that's about. Like, you took a risk with this relationship before, and with the Eight of Cups being hopes and fears, are you going to invest in this and not get anything out of it, right? Because I really think that the focus needs to be on making sure that you and the other person are feeling the exact same way here. I don't doubt that there is, a really strong emotional connection and a lot of passion here with the Knight of Wands. But I don't think that you want to be involved with a situation that is not going to be long lasting. And what I worry about with the Knight of Wands is, yeah, we can be talking about a situation that's like in and out. Getting too caught up in the passion, but not really thinking about, the long term. And is that really what you want to do? Is that something that you would be okay with, going back to justice? But again, like, I still think that, there needs to be some kind of like balance with what may have happened and why you feel like you're taking a risk with being involved with this person in the first place. But like I said, for a lot of you, it could be because this is like a long-term relationship here with the Ten of Cups. This is something that would otherwise be a very happy situation. But with the Eight of Cups, at some point here, I think that you have thought about what you weren't getting from this. If you get involved, are you going to be drained? I don't think that you want to walk away from this at all. And like, I understand, but it's not something that you want to invest in if you're not going to see anything coming out of it, right? And then coming out, strength. So pulling on your inner strength here, not to kind of go into this place of, am I going to get involved and then, not get what I want from this? And then the Eight of Pentacles, yeah, it's going to take a lot of hard work. And I think that for a lot of you, you're just kind of getting swept up in the passion, because none of this looks really bad to me at all. This would otherwise be a very happy situation, but I think that you may have been dealing with a person who was, not really in tune with the way that they were feeling and not knowing, how to act or what to do. With the Moon being connected to the Fool, this is taking a risk on somebody here who has not, been like grounded in reality. There may be a lot of things that they're needing to deal with. You may have been like really confused as to why they have acted the way that they did in the past. There may not be a whole lot of clarity on what to expect moving forward here. But it looks like, this is a person who definitely has a strong emotional connection to you, them. And again, like I said, this would otherwise be a very happy situation, but I think that the Moon is representing them and where, they really couldn't get past, what they were feeling and not understanding how they were feeling, because with the Moon, I see the confusion, not being realistic about things, projecting unrealistic fears and expectations onto things. And with strength, it's like you're trying to find the strength to move past that and not, focus on that. It's more about, going ahead and not worrying about what's going to happen later on, especially with that Knight of Wands there. But I also understand not wanting to be caught up in something. But what I don't like here is that the Page of Swords being connected to the Knight of Cups and then looking at the Ten of Cups. Again, This is somebody who may have done something that they couldn't fully explain or that they couldn't fully understand themselves. And with the Page of Swords, I think that for you, there's, a lot of questions that you have. I need some kind of answers, but I don't think that this person really knows how to explain themselves and their actions, which is why you're taking such a big risk here with the Fool and kind of getting involved with this. But I think eventually what happens here is that instead of having any expectations and like expecting things to be forever, you're just kind of like going with the passion here, holding on to your strength and continuing to kind of like enjoy this experience. Whatever it is that they were going through, with the Eight of Pentacles, I do think that they're trying to work through it. And I think they also understand that there is a lot of hard work that needs to be put into this relationship and getting past, what they may have done in the past that they couldn't even understand themselves. It's almost like, we were really happy. I don't understand why you did what you did. Well, they're like, I can't explain it either. But with the Knight of Cups, it's like they still very much want to have that kind of overall happiness with you. And that is what they are trying to like put forward here. But I think that, with strength and then looking at the Eight of Pentacles, it's really hard for you to kind of like go, okay, I'm not going to get like super involved or expect anything, big here. I'm just going to go with the flow on this because of the connection with the Two of Cups. And none of it is bad, Cancer. I just think that you're looking at this going, I don't know how much more I can invest in this if I'm not going to get what I want. And I understand that. Now, some of you may be fearing that this person may abandon you again after putting so much into, trying to rebuild the connection, which is possible here with Justice. And I hate saying this, but I look at Justice and I think, for you, looking at the Page of Swords, I don't know that you're exactly going to get the answer that's going to make this situation better or, have it, be fair. But you have to make sure that you're doing what you feel like is right for you, right? Now, I want to say with the Oracle cards, because they stick out to me so much with this situation, I want to say, when it comes to paying attention here, I think that, the red flags are what you need to pay attention to, and not that there's something happening, but the red flags being, what you're expecting. You understand what I mean? So this is like going to be one of those experiences for you where I feel like you just kind of need to go for it and need to go with it. And find the strength here not to try to pick a person apart or pick the situation apart and trying to understand why they did what they did. And you may be having a hard time understanding why it is that they're coming back through here, and with the Fool, it makes sense, it being a risk, right? And then honor yourself. You have to do, I'm telling you, you have to do what you feel like is right for you. And it's not that you shouldn't do this or be involved, but don't give to something where you're not really sure that you're going to get anything out of. It very clearly can be with strength coming out that you're trying to find the strength to say, no, I need answers. There needs to be more effort on your part to, help me understand. But like I said, with the Moon, they don't even understand why they did what they did. They don't even understand how they feel right now. But you have to pay attention to your inner guidance, ground yourself in what is going to be the best for you, and honoring yourself. Wondrous universe, walk in beauty, and then first light, beginning a new cycle. And that's basically what you need to focus on, especially if this is about a new beginning here, right? See the beauty in it. See the beauty in the universe here, and you will start to see that this is the beginning of something new, but it's going to be better than I think what you expect, right? But I would be careful about having expectations, you know. And I don't want to say that, you know, if this is somebody that you're dealing with, that what they did wasn't like wrong. I think that they understand that too. I just don't think that they know how to explain it to you. And I can understand you wanting to have answers before you accept anything, especially if you are dealing with somebody who did something that, like I said, otherwise disrupted what would be, you know, a happy situation. You know, but I don't know, Cancer. I look at that Eight of Cups and I think, you know, I understand it, but at the same time, I don't want to tell you to move on from this. You know, you may be seeing something completely different happen out of this, but you need to ground yourself, like I said, and honor yourself. That is by far more important. Don't do anything that is going against, you know, who you truly are.